Another random topic video for your head top. This one is about perspective. Perspective is something that a lot of people they need to grasp that concept. They need to understand that the way you view the world isn't necessarily the correct view. There's multiple views. For example, I'm an immigrant that came to this country. If you pay attention to my videos, you heard me say that before. One thing about being an immigrant, when you come from a country that has my country, specifically Liberia, is a third world country due to the Civil War. It wasn't always bad, but the Civil War brought a lot of Liberians. They came to America to escape all the violence and the country just going completely down the hill. By being here, I recognize all the opportunity. Whereas people who they're just from here, like people like in the hood, a lot of them think like, oh man, the black man will never get over. The black man will never do this. The black man will never do that. The white people are just going to continue to stop us. But when you're an immigrant, you come from another country. You like, man, I'm a work. I'm a out hustle everyone. I'm a outwork everyone. Nobody is gonna stop me from doing what I want to do. A lot of immigrants excel because of their mentality. So you have to change your mentality if you want to change your current situation. Nigerians, I know a lot of Nigerians. Nigerians are like, they come here and they do better than everyone. They get more degrees than everyone. They make more money than everyone because they got that hustler's mentality when they come here. They know what they just left. I don't know how Nigeria even is. I don't know the state of the country or nothing like that, but when they come here, they hustle harder than everybody. And they put that mentality in their kids. For all my black people out there, if you want to make it out of your situation, take on the immigrant mentality. Look what's going on around the world and understand how good you got it. There's people who they can't chase their dream because the country doesn't even have enough resources for you to do everything you want to do. America is the richest country in the world. You literally can do anything you want in this country. You just got to have the right perspective. Another perspective is, me being a man, it was a point in my life where I didn't really understand the perspective of women. And because of that, I never really was able to pull chicks like that. My mom, we was always having some type of conflict, my sisters and all that. I just always was in conflict with women. It just seemed like it was because I didn't understand. I didn't understand what they go through. I didn't see the world through their eyes. The more I matured and grew older, I finally came to a realization that my perspective isn't the only one out there. My perspective is just that, my perspective. For instance, my mom would come in the house and, she never had a man. My father was living in Liberia. And because she didn't have a man around to protect her and make her feel comfortable, she was always afraid. She'd come in the house, she see lights on in the kitchen, and she was just like, who's that? Who's that? Me, I'm just like, what the hell's wrong with this lady? Like, what the fuck is she always sneaking around the house, being afraid of shit? Like, in my mind, I'm like, what kind of robber's gonna come in the house and be sitting there watching TV? Like, like what smart home invader's gonna do that? If anything, you gonna book it as soon as you do it, because you don't know who's gonna run up in that house. You don't know if it's a woman living there, unless you really been looking at the house. And if that's the case, what's the point of that? Because we live in the hood again. If you really gonna case a house, go case a rich person's house. But that was just my mentality. Being a man, I'm not afraid of most things. I'm not afraid of the possibility of being raped. I'm not afraid of the possibility of being assaulted. And none of that. That's not things that men usually think about. Women, on the other hand, that's a constant threat. That's called man privilege. Everyone has their own privilege. I get the privilege of walking around pretty much without fear. Not to say I'm not afraid of anything. There's plenty of things people are afraid of, but I'm not afraid of somebody just trying to do something to me because I'm strong enough to defend myself. Women, on average, are smaller than men. Also, they're less aggressive than men. You don't hear too much about, and usually when men are being violated, it's usually by other men. That's one way to look at it. You got to see the world from somebody's perspective from time to time to understand that you got to see how good you have it. A lot of times, men, we really downplay the women, man. We downplay how much they mean to us. We take them for granted. If we really understood what they go through, the fear of potentially being assaulted, and from what I hear, I don't know if the statistics are right or not, but you hear about, they say 1 in 4 women has been sexually assaulted in her life. 1 in 4. That's a very high number. That means, you may not know that somebody has went through it, but somebody has been sexually assaulted or physically assaulted. 1 in 4 is very high. Somebody, matter of fact, not even just somebody, a few women have been assaulted. They just may not have ever told you. So that's something that we have to understand when we're having these debates. The battle is raging right now, men versus women, and a lot of times it's just because we're looking at it from a strictly man perspective. We don't see that how women get it's harder for them to be taken seriously. It's harder for them to be respected. They get a job, this guy's their boss trying to hit on them. If I had I've had female bosses before, and even if they try to hit on me, I mean, I'm not thinking like, oh, I'm about to lose my job if I turn her down or nothing like that. It may be a possibility. It's just not something that guys think about. And a lot of times, just not having to worry about certain things, that could be all the difference in your life, your mood, your day-to-day thing. You don't have to worry. Worrying and stressing is something that, too much of it, it can affect your physiology, your anatomy, your body. You know, you could develop health symptoms based off stressing so much about, man, every time I come in here, my boss he's trying to hit on me. I keep turning him down. I think that I may lose my job if I don't succumb to his advances. Men have made the world a nightmare for women to live in. And when I finally understood that, I could understand more why my mom would get mad at me when I'd be in the kitchen. She'd be calling her, who's that? And I'm like, I wasn't thinking from her perspective. I was just thinking from a man's perspective of not having to be afraid. These are just one of the many examples of seeing somebody else's perspective. There's also the perspective of, and women fall into this, an oppressed person, even if you're not the oppressor, they view the world a different way. Again, being black, it frustrates me when a lot of white people, they seem to not understand our plight. We scream Black Lives Matter, they scream All Lives Matter, and we're like, we know all lives matter, I mean, clearly, but there's times in our life, through our history in this country, where we've felt like black lives didn't matter. We feel like we have to tell you this because y'all seem to not care. And when people fight back, it's like, man, y'all just don't want to see from our perspective. You don't have to worry about a lot of these things, but we do. You don't have to worry about somebody seeing your name on a job application and throwing it out. My name is Tambakai Augustine Jangaba. I mean, I can't imagine how many jobs pretty much just like, who? Nope. I mean, it was a time where I had a job and we did surveys. And when I would say, hi, my name is Tambakai, he was like, wait, what's your name? I'm like, Tambakai. He goes, yeah, I'm hanging up now. Click. There was this other guy, he was like Middle Eastern or Muslim or something like that. I don't know, Islamic. I don't know exactly what he was, but, he had an accent. And we found it funny that so many people hung up on him, especially after the whole 9/11 thing. Anyone who picked up the phone and heard his voice, heard that accent, they hung up on him, usually. He was like, I don't want to mimic his voice and I want to keep things in a serious mood, but any call this guy made, as soon as they heard his voice, they hung up. Eventually, they just had to let him go because, he's like, people keep hanging up on me. I don't know what's going on. And we knew what was going on. This country now has a bias towards Muslims. He may not even have been Muslim. He just sounded like an Arab or sounded, who knows where he was from. His accent just, no one wanted to hear it. People need perspective. And even the white perspective. White people have a perspective as well. They see the world in ways that other communities don't. They're usually at the top positions no matter where you go. Any country you go to, white people seem to be in charge. Imagine growing up white and having people constantly look at you as like the devil or the demon. People say it all the time, the white devils and this and that, and they kind of just have to take it. A lot of them, they're like, man, I wasn't the one who, I feel bad for you. I know that you've been oppressed. I know that you struggle, but I didn't personally do anything to you. I'm not the one who was alive during slavery. I'm not the one who's oppressing you now. A lot of times we don't see their perspective. I mean, if somebody came to me and told me, hey, oh, you're Liberian, right? I'm like, yeah, well, did you know 100 years ago, your people enslaved my people, or your people abused and just degraded my people? I feel like you're responsible for that. You need to do something about that. You need to do something. Your people, you need to do something to help my people because of what was done all those years ago. I'm probably gonna be like, man, if you don't get the fuck out of here with that bullshit, because I'm just gonna think, hey, again, I feel bad for you. I empathize with you, but I'm not the one who did it. So why should I be the one having to make up for it? You know what I'm saying? Like, that's just human nature. If you weren't personally involved in something, there's no way somebody can convince you that you need to take responsibility for it. You're gonna look at it, hey, it's not me. Everyone wants to pass the buck to somebody else. And especially when, again, if you weren't personally involved in it, it's hard for me to say, yeah, I'm gonna write you a check, or I'm gonna do anything, because and I'm just being honest. That would be very difficult for me because I wasn't personally the one who harmed you or wronged your people. You weren't the one who was actually harmed the most. You know, you're a descendant of those people. So again, perspective is something that we all need to gain. We all need to see other people's perspective before we attack them, before we want to try to call them lazy or you're always complaining or you're this, you're that. Take a second and understand that your perspective isn't the only one in the world. Everyone sees the world in a different way. And the more that we start to understand that and start to respect each other's perspective, you may not agree with it, but you don't have to be disrespectful. For a lot of people, their plight is very emotional to them. You know, like I always say, where emotion exists, logic can't. You know, so they may not be thinking too straight, but at the same time, if you now become emotional, you become defensive, we get nowhere. Try to see the world from other people's eyes. We can only get better. It's just my thoughts, ladies and gentlemen. Peace.